So I was recently exposed to a side of the hobby that had always just kind of been in the background for me. It wasn't something that I really engaged a lot in, and that is, what is it like to be a seller of video games on a somewhat consistent basis? If you've been following the channel, you may have saw, I think it was about 8 months ago, maybe 10 months ago, I just put up a lot of games just as kind of an experiment. Let me bundle together all of my best games and see what happens. And the result was I sold a part of that. Certainly not the whole thing. I think I came on here and did a rant about the people on Reddit. That's a different issue. Then I just kind of got busy with work, and then as summer has rolled around, I decided to put up some other stuff, and this is mostly Craigslist. It's tiring to constantly ship things out when you sell stuff on eBay, so I figured, throw stuff up on Craigslist and see what happens. So, I've had a couple of experiences that have really opened my eyes to the retro gaming hobby. And the first is the kind of just different side of people that comes out when they are looking to buy video games. So one of the constant things that I get here on Craigslist, where I am, and quite frankly, I do get a lot of responses because in my immediate area, there are really not a lot of people selling anything good. I probably have a stock of some of the best stuff, at least that's floating up there on Craigslist. People are selling Madden and Xbox Ones and stuff like that. And I'm putting up some desirable retro games. And I probably get from almost everyone, the sort of talk down. Well, I don't know what the price is. I'm totally off base. And what I try to do is I price things near eBay. Now, I know that a couple of prominent people in the hobby said, oh, well, why do these people at flea markets and on Craigslist price things at eBay prices? Because they don't have the overhead that eBay brings. Well, but eBay is the market. You can't deny that. I've said that a million times. This is the market. Why would anyone who has a desirable game look at eBay and say, well, I'm going to price it 40% less, just because Pat the NES Punk said so on his podcast? I mean, it's complete nonsense. I think eBay is a starting point, and, let's see where we wind up. And I let these people know, this is not a desperation sale. I can get rid of these things, or I can hold on to them. Doesn't really matter to me. I'm not going to take a beating on these things. I'm not going to sell something I bought for $50 to you for $5. But let's see where we can meet. And by the way, it was a strategy last year that worked out pretty well. I didn't lose money on anything I sold, and most of the people that bought from me, I think, were relatively happy with the transaction. So it's unusual. And so the one guy in particular, I put up, I've got a copy of Street Fighter Alpha or 03 on the Saturn. So I put that up, and a guy informs me that it's not going for what it used to and offers me $25 for it. Now, if you look on, price charting, or even if you look at the solds, the eBay recently sold, this thing's going for between $160 and $240. Of course, I didn't respond to that, but, you get flooded with these people. Another situation, I was selling a joystick. I was selling that X-Arcade joystick that I reviewed now about 3-4 years ago. I just wasn't using it. And I had a guy trying to tell me that, based on, and by the way, I was listening for about $80. Currently sells for $150, and, got very light use for me. So a guy was saying that based on when I bought it and the fact that it had the PS2 connector, the PC PS2 connector, and not the USB connector, that it could have been 15 years old, and there's a certain rate at which plastic and rubber decays. So he somehow had an equation and figured out, well, at 15 years old, I needed to sell this to him for $40. It's, fundamentally disrespectful. And I had a situation where I actually met a guy, and I had put up a couple of mid-range PS1 games, Alundra, Tornico's Quest, the Mega Man Legends, Black Label Mega Man Legends, and something else that I can't remember. It was maybe one of the Final Fantasies, Final Fantasy 9 or something. So, kind of mid-range stuff. It's not terribly common. They're not mediocre games. They're pretty good games. And we'd agreed on a price. And when I met him, he was looking at them, and okay, the discs are in good condition, but you know what? The hinges, I don't like the hinge movement on some of these games. I think you either, was trying to tell me that these weren't the original CD cases for the PS1 games, or that somehow they had unusual hinge wear, and of course, he wanted $50 off the price, and I just, I walked away. I mean, it's insane, and what you realize with a lot of these people that you actually meet and you actually have an exchange with, you have a telephone conversation with, is that the laid back, bearded, gaming bro, hipster type that seems to populate the retro gaming community, and they're all about, inclusiveness and getting people into the hobby and celebrating and preserving all of these cool games. Boy, when you meet them in person and you try to make a deal with them, some of them are absolute dicks. And I just think it's something we have to realize. Now, the thing that really pissed me off today, and I was selling, I had listed the Virtua Cop for the Sega Saturn, Japanese games, good condition with the gun, the Japanese gun. And I just listed them because, it's kind of depressing. I'm getting old, and I noticed that, it's kind of fatiguing to constantly play these games. Plus, I had just brought my CRT into storage. I was never going to use this stuff again. So a guy contacts me, and he says, oh, yeah, I want those games, and I'll pay you full price. And by the way, do you have any other Saturn games? And I said, well, yeah, I got a lot of Japanese Sega Saturn games. So, were you looking for anything in particular? Maybe I can help you out. And his response was, I want all of them. I want all of them. I said, well, I've got maybe about 150. So, I mean, I don't know them off the top of my head. Is there a particular genre that you like? Is there a particular, developer that you like? I mean, I can't help you. I don't know all the games I have off the top of my head. I'd have to go home and look. So he gets back to me and says, well, take pictures of all of them and send them to me. Take pictures of all of them. 150 games. I said, look, I don't have time to do that. Okay, so if you can't answer a direct question as to what you want, let's just go with the Virtua Cop games. And if you think of something else, let me know. And the response comes back, and he says, actually, no. What I did was I sent him a spreadsheet. I had made a spreadsheet a while back of what I had, and I said, yeah, this isn't everything, but it'll give you an example. And he looks at it, and, he sends me about 15 games that he wants, and informs me that they have all, in fact, dropped in price significantly since around the time that I bought them. He didn't know when I bought them, but they had all plummeted in price, according to him. So we go back and forth, and, he sends me, what he thinks he wants to pay, and I send him a counter offer, and, falls apart. And we were only, maybe separated by about $40. So, it's a game, right? Everyone wants, all the buyers want to convince the sellers that what they have isn't worth anything. And of course, the buyers want to, or the sellers want to convince the buyers, oh, this is the rarest game ever. And so you just, it's kind of like any other business transaction that you run into in life. You just have a lot of disinformation. You have a lot of time wasting. You have a lot of kind of angling and salesmanship on both sides. And yet, when you see these people at conventions, when you see them on YouTube, boy, they're the nicest, most laid-back guys. And I'm not saying I was with another YouTuber. That's not the case. But I'm saying, I always talk about the retro personality. And when you meet other people with the retro personality, it's all fun and games, when you're having a beer, you're at a convention. But boy, when it comes to selling, all of a sudden, everything that you have is absolutely worthless. Or in some cases, when you want to buy a game, apparently a mediocre game that was produced in the millions is now the Hope Diamond. So, it works both ways. And this is to say nothing of how unpleasant it is to walk in to game stores and these private game stores. And look, I know they have overhead. I know certainly in baseball cards and coins, typically expect $50 or 50% of book when you go into those places. And of course, you're going in there because, you want the sale. You've got a guy who will buy it. You've got a guy or a woman, who, has the money to pay you. So you kind of know what you're walking into. But I've been in some stores recently and the prices are absurd. The prices are absolutely absurd and the staff is nasty. Again, these are these are businessmen, but they're in the retro community. My favorite story is when I had that lot of games, and that was a big lot of games. I had a store contact me, and they said that they're interested. Would I bring them in? And the store was a fair distance away. I said, well, I don't want to drive there. I just think, let me know what you would offer. I mean, you see the list of games, you see the condition. Pick out 5-10 games from the lot. There's probably about 200 games in the lot, and let's get an idea of what our price ranges are. What are you willing to offer? What are my expectations? Before I spend an hour in the car driving out there. And the guy's response was, "Well, sir, you have to understand, we really can't pay you that much. So why are you contacting me? If you can't come up with even a lowball rational offer, what is the point of even getting into this conversation?" And the last part is, I've been to 2 conventions, and one was a number of years ago, sort of very small kind of convention, and the other was that one out in Philadelphia, and I forget what it's called. Too many games, something like that. What are these guys charging? They're charging eBay prices. The only difference is, if you don't live in the area and the thing is broken, well, then you know what? What are you going to do? You can't return it, so why not just buy on eBay? And again, there's, no one's giving you, quote, bro prices at these conventions, at least not the 2 that I went to. So it's very interesting to see what your fellow retro gamers, how they treat you. And that's another part, too. These experiences, it's not like, it's you're buying a house and you're throwing out counteroffers. There's a fair degree of nastiness on some of the people that I dealt with. And look, I'm not I'm not going to win awards for being soft and cuddly and all of that. But there's a level of nastiness and disrespect that these people will treat you with when you're just trying to sell some good stuff to other collectors. No one has approached me in any of this as a kind of fellow hobbyist who's just looking to reduce his position, and there's no kind of friendly banter. There's no, and look, listen, you're trying to sell something on the internet. It's not like you need to be coddled and you got to go out and have a dinner date first before you sell. But there's never a sense of camaraderie. There's never a sense of commonality. What you essentially have are a bunch of, people who come off as conniving sharks. And it's pretty disheartening. So I can only imagine, like, if you really need to sell some stuff and make some money, how terrible these people are to deal with. I'm not in a position where I need to get rid of this stuff, and I will wait to find the right buyers, and I have done it. But yeah, if you haven't experienced that, I'm talking about not just selling a game here or there on eBay, but going out and dealing with people in your local community. Pretty disheartening experience.